Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Alyssa Isley on the podcast. She's an IFBB pro coming to us all the way from North Carolina. Most importantly, I would say, though, she's our current guest. Alyssa, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get started, I do have to ask, what is the weather like in North Carolina right now?
It is warm but rainy.
Okay, so I'm just getting depressed just admitting this, but in Minnesota it was like 60 degrees on Friday and Saturday, or Saturday and Sunday, I should say. So everyone was all excited, but now we just learned that Wednesday night starting, we are going to get a snowstorm that could be up to 14 inches of snow.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Last week it actually snowed a
Mhm.
day after it was 70 degrees.
Hopefully up here, this is winter's last hurrah, because we had a really rough one this year with that polar vortex where it was like -60 wind chill, and that's where if you go outside and if you even have one article of skin like open, all it takes is 2 minutes for you to get frostbite. So yeah, it's been rough, but so hopefully that's why I always like to ask our guests what the weather's like down there, so I can get depressed and be like, oh my god, I wish I lived in a different climate. So yeah, this is the so we start out real depressing for everyone, but then we go out and we move up on the podcast and we make it a little bit lighter. So going into your health and fitness journey, what really inspired and what motivated you to get in shape and adapt that lifestyle?
I actually was I hate to admit it, but I was drinking a lot. I had a divorce, I had a death in my family. Um, and I have 5 children, and I was just rock bottom. I needed to get my stuff together. And I decided to compete in bikini. Um, And so I started out on stage at 115 pounds 3 years ago as an NPC bikini competitor.
Wow. Mom of 5 and she has arms like that. It's like, are you kidding me, people? That's just ridiculous. Yeah, look at that. That's not even funny. I'm ending this podcast right here. This is ridiculous. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, and that's just so inspiring. And when you were getting started with working out, though, I always like to, make the statement, because I believe it to be true, where if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, I mean, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to their diet, their nutrition, I mean, how many reps they do. I mean, just so many little things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. Was that a struggle for you when you were getting started, just realizing and figuring out what worked best for your body? Because I always say, if you were to walk up to someone and say, hey, what did you train for this body part? I mean, it looks amazing. I want my body part to look like that. What worked best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you.
Yes, you read so much online, and like Google is not always your friend because it's going to point you in every direction. But like you said, it doesn't work for everyone. And my body was one of those where I drop a certain amount of food or I add a little bit too much cardio and I get too lean, which judges don't like all the time. So it's just one of those things. It took several months trying to figure out how my body worked and where I looked best and training even.
Yeah, I mean, it can be so hard. I always say you're kind of like a mad scientist where you're just figuring out what works best for you. You're like making your own concoctions. I mean, and it's just so individualized. So that's why I love asking this next question, because everyone's genetics are different. So when you were getting started working out, what was one body part that really, really took off that you didn't need to train as much? And then what was one body part that really lagged behind that you really need to train to overdrive? I mean, I'll give you my examples first. So for me, I mean, my back, probably because, during college, I, had so many warehouse jobs where I was like, lifting heavy boxes into trucks and also working out. So that I think really just gave me a back where I always say that's the one thing that looks like I can compete. Someone looks at me from the back, they say, oh, that guy could definitely do a show. But then I turn around, they're like, oh yeah, he has a lot of work to do. So that's probably the thing for me. But I'm also 6'3". So I mean, my lower body, my legs are just shot to where, I mean, I have to train them twice a week just to get them to look like I even touch a weight with them. I mean, I always say I get so upset because people think, I mean, if I go like a week without lifting legs, people would look at me and they'd probably be like, oh, that's just your classic guy who just, trains buys and upper body and doesn't even lift legs. I was like, no, I train legs. Like, trust me. Like, I always say, like, I could inject pure muscle into my thighs and calves and they wouldn't grow an ounce. So, I mean, I just don't get it, but, it's something that I deal with, because I had, like, like that pitcher's body where you're just long and lean. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
Mine were actually the complete opposite. My back it was non-existent. Um, and actually in my first figure competition, I literally look at picture, I'm like, what was I thinking getting on stage? Um, So my back is what took the longest. My legs, they took off immediately.
Yeah. And I always say like calves are my least favorite just because they're the most genetically blessed where you can see someone walk in the gym and they have nice calves and
And
you're
you
just,
know.
and you're just like, screw you. Like honestly, like you've never lifted calves a day in your life or done anything with them. So yeah, I mean, that's why I always love asking that question because I always have that feeling where a lot of people, especially with Instagram, where they post pictures and people see that like, oh, she has great abs or he has great arms. They think that they just like, oh, I just want that body part, and they just don't realize that genetically speaking, you might not be able to attain that. Where then they go to the gym and they're like,
Yeah,
oh, I want to have arms like so and so, or I want to have a back like so and so. Well, maybe so and so just has different genetics where you can't achieve that, or their training methods are different, or their nutrition. I mean, that's why I love asking that, just so for people can realize, just do what's best for you. I mean, just try to develop what is the best body part for yourself. But one of the
yeah.
biggest myths and stereotypes that I love to bust on this podcast, I mean, I ask it to every single guest, and because it's super important to me. I mean, it's gotten better the last 5 years with Instagram, but there's still so many women that have that fear where if they do one bicep curl, they do one push up or pull up, they're just gonna hulk out, put on 50 pounds of muscle, and like we were talking about before we started recording, I always say to that, sign me up then. I would be your first client. I would pay you all my money that I ever had saved up. I mean, you would be just such a hot commodity. Scientists would kidnap you and do tests on you in a lab somewhere in some mountain somewhere. But did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, how do you like to respond to that now? Because I bet you hear that all the time.
I used to have that fear. And then I kept getting bigger and more into it. And eventually it was the point where I wanted to lift that dumbbell or I wanted to squat that weight and get that big. But I do love that you said that because I have people that come up to me in like grocery stores and they're like, oh, you look amazing. I don't ever want to look like you, but could you help me? Well, yeah, you will never look like me, I promise. But I was that person. I was like, oh, she's too big. And I was scared. And eventually that fear goes away. And it takes a lot to even get that size. It will not happen for most people.
And for women especially, I mean, for even for guys, that's like almost, that you have to be
Yes.
so lucky. And people don't realize that when they just say, when they go into that, I mean, just that hard work in it. Because I always love to tell the story when I was going to the gym, getting bigger and stronger in college. One of my really good friends, she came up to me and she said, Ryan, I see that you're making all these changes and I want to go to the gym with you, but I'm just afraid that I'm going to get too bulky. And I told her, look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse weighs more than most of the dumbbells in the gym. I mean, she had a very heavy purse. Like I always say, I don't know if she had like a dead body in there or what she was doing in her off time, but it was a very heavy purse. So I told her, I said, like just carrying that thing around, you should have probably some of the biggest arms in the world, but you don't. And then that sort of convinced her and she went into the gym and she really, really enjoyed it. And that also brings me into probably the number one thing that I think impacts women so much more than it does guys when they go to the gym is the confidence boost that it gives you. Because let's face it, you could be a 400-pound guy and you can walk into the gym and sometimes they act like they own the place. I mean, that's just the way how some guys are. But for women especially, I mean, that confidence boost, I always say, is probably the biggest thing that you can take from that healthy and fit lifestyle and working out and really just adapt it to every other aspect in your life. How did that confidence boost impact you? And what are some ways that you have used that in order to, benefit your outside life other than the gym?
It helped me a lot. It taught me a lot about self-love. Um, it's taught me to be a better parent, whether it's how I teach them to do things, how we do things on a normal day basis, or even in the kitchen. It really is. I go into the gym and I immediately feel amazing. But not only that, when I leave, I feel like a completely different person. I think that no matter what, if you're a parent or not a parent, I always say, like, love yourself enough to go to the gym. 30 minutes, I don't care, 20 minutes, do something. Everyone has an excuse. And I think that you would feel so much better about yourself if you stopped making those excuses. Because it really does. It's a huge confidence booster. And even when I'm 115 pounds or now 155, or I was 185 pounds 3 months ago. And even then, I knew I was off season, but I loved myself the way I was.
And that's just so important because people just don't realize that confidence boost, like I was talking about, you can adjust it to everything in your life. I mean, for me personally, just having the confidence to go up and talk to people that I might not have had the confidence to talk to before. I mean, it can impact you in so many ways, just being a little bit more headstrong. You're a lot more assertive. I mean, you normally aren't, you're willing to put up with less than you would put up with, I think, just because you just feel so much better about yourself. And that's probably the biggest benefit, I think, not just for women, but for everyone that you can get from working out other than the aesthetic look. But Your journey into bodybuilding, did you have any knowledge about bodybuilding prior to going to the gym and working out, or was it one of those things where you started working out and seeing those changes, and then you really were just like, "Hey, I want to give this a try and see what happens."
I knew very little. I actually had never been to the gym, um, until approximately 5 years ago. I ran, and that's all I did, and then I realized, "Hey, this is getting old. I need to do something else." And then I got my certification. I now run a gym. I run an online competition, like, business. I have clients locally and from a distance. So, it went from never going to a gym to absolutely loving it, and my whole life is about it.
And that's so awesome. And where is your gym located in case we have any people in the North Carolina area who might want to be looking for a new gym to go to?
It is, in Burlington, North Carolina. I do have a website. It's just AlyssaIsley.com.
All right. Yeah, I'll definitely leave a link down below so everyone can go and check that out. How long into working out before you finally decided, like, hey, I want to go into a prep? How long of a process was that?
It wasn't very long. I went into a prep and then life happened and I ended up not competing. And a few months later, I got back into it and I competed in my first bikini competition. It took me about 8 weeks to get ready. I'm naturally leaner, except now it is a little harder because I put more weight on when I'm not competing. Um, but yeah, it was about an 8-week process. And even then, I felt like I was too lean. So I could have taken a little more time, ate a little more food, but it's a learning experience.
That's so I mean, most of our guests, their first prep is like, 3 times as long as that, so that's awesome that you were able to do that in such a small amount of time, but I always tell people, the general public at least, that so many people don't understand that just to be able to get into shape to go on a prep takes so much hard work and dedication that, I mean, 99% of the public would never be able to do that, but going on a prep, that is just notching things up to an extreme level where, I mean, you have to do your cardio, you have to work out, all of your workouts have to be done, I mean, you can't miss any of them. You have to eat usually at the right amount of time, the right amount of proportions. I mean, you just have to be so scientific for it. Was that a struggle for you starting out with that? Just because that can be such a rigid and strict lifestyle.
It was. I'm not gonna lie, the diet was always my issue. Um, Cardio, I didn't mind. Training, don't mind. It's food. And like I said, I am a parent, so I have 5 kids that enjoy food, and so it's always here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I just can't imagine that, especially because, like, let's face it, kids don't want to be eating chicken and, eggs, basically the whole time, or any of those other foods. So yeah, that can just be so trying. And what are some ways that you're able to do that without just going crazy, just watching your kids eat all these different things while you're sitting there, eating your own prepared food? Is it just a huge mental game for you?
It is. It's the fact I know I don't wanna lose. I want to set a good example. I'm not a quitter. I'm never happy with 2nd place, and I think that's what it is. My kids see me, and while they might not wanna eat chicken all the time, they don't. They do get pizza. They get the good stuff. Normally, the last few weeks of any prep, they understand, and they will actually eat the chicken and the asparagus and the rice. They will do it because they know that that's what I need.
Now, obviously, as we can tell just by looking at you, you're probably not in bikini anymore. You're gotten a little bit bigger than that. So, how long before you made that switch from bikini?
About a year into bikini, I was told I was too lean for bikini. And to me, that was, I'm not going to gain weight to do what I'm doing. So I switched to figure. I competed in figure about a year and took my overall in figure. And the next competition I competed in women's physique, took an overall, and also went pro. So it's like 3 years just climbing.
Hey, I guess you made the right choice then, because that is so awesome. And what is that experience like for you winning that pro card? Because for a lot of people out there, I'll just explain it to them real quickly. Winning your pro card is really just, for so many people, is their highlight of their competitive history, because that is the affirmation that all that hard work that you've put in the gym really has paid off. What was that feeling like for you when they announced your name and you realized that you won your pro card?
I honestly bawled. I, like, cried like a big baby on the stage, and even during the interview, if any you can find it online, I'm, like, bawling. So it was very exciting. It's You work so hard to get a 1st place trophy, then you work hard to get an overall, but to go for your pro card, it's honestly one of the best feelings I've ever had knowing I got it, and I worked so hard getting it.
And that's one thing that I love having our guests come on the show, because so many people just don't know how much hard work and effort these competitors really put into it. But now one of our fun questions. So as you can tell, like I was telling you before, I'm one of the palest people you'll ever meet in your entire life. I mean, being from the upper Midwest, we don't get that much sun, but even when we do, I mean, I either get a farmer's tan, which, let's face it, that's not a real tan, or I just get burnt to a crisp. What is that feeling like for you when you get that tan put on? Because we have so many people just talk about how you see muscles that you never even knew that you had. Everything really seems to pop out. What is that feeling like for you?
Well, first of all, it feels amazing because you went from point A to point B and you're finally there, of course. Um, but when you do get tan, you do see things you've never seen. I see whether it's vascularity or just the size, you look more 3D, and it's crazy. I Some people it may be the muscles show, but for me, it's like knowing it's finally time. You finally get to display everything you've done.
Yeah, and I always say, like, you guys also have to become basically like statues. I mean, you can't really sit on anything, can't really stand against anything. I mean, it's always just a struggle with that. So that even adds more to the fact. But it's just so awesome for that. But also, a question that I ask, every single guest that I have on the show, whether they be bands, health and fitness, or any other type of guest, is that for my bands, I always ask, what is that feeling like for you when you get to go on stage and, perform live in front of hundreds to thousands of people? And that also applies to the bodybuilders. What is that feeling like for you when you get to go on stage and show off all of that hard work that you've worked months upon months for?
It is amazing. I never thought I would feel comfortable standing on stage in a bikini. I actually, at my first competition, I froze on the stage. I have a video of me freezing and walking off. So now it's like an opportunity. I can actually look at all the judges confidently and look at the people in the audience. And I realize you did this. This is your time. And I love it. I love every second of it, even if it's only 60 seconds or a minute, 30 seconds. It's amazing because you're there.
Absolutely. I always say that it's just so important in life to find that one thing that really just brings you that much joy and happiness, and just to stick with it. I mean, we're on this planet for such a short amount of time, and just to find that, I mean, it can really add so much more to your life. But probably the biggest surprise that I ever had when starting this podcast, and when I started especially having the bodybuilders on, is that the general public doesn't get this too as much. And I honestly don't get it either. But when it comes to these competitors, posing for them is usually the hardest thing. I mean, it's harder than your training, it's harder than your nutrition. I mean, I would have never guessed that in a million years. And I like to compare it now to, like, you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always something that's ever evolving. And especially for someone like you who started out in bikini and then moved up to physique where the posing is vastly different. What has your experience been like with posing?
It was hard. It still is. It's not just you have to find what's perfect for your body. This girl might look good in this pose, but girl, your waist is gonna look huge in this pose. Um, so it's just not perfecting it because it's never gonna be perfect. Um, for me, it's just been, I mean, learning myself. I had to teach myself. I couldn't get a posing coach. I tried, it didn't work. It's something you have to have the confidence to display, and that's the only way you're gonna look good doing it, is being confident.
What was that like going from also the bikini poses to the physique? Because those are vastly different.
I'm not gonna lie, I think those bikini poses have helped me in physique, because I don't go on stage looking like a robot. I go on stage prancing around like a princess still.
That's awesome. So what is your favorite physique pose to do, and what is your least favorite physique pose to do?
My favorite is a side tricep. Um, I don't like side chest because it's boring to me, but I like everything really.
That is actually the first time that we've heard side chest for least favorite. Usually it's abs, because that's just one of those where you're looking. I mean, it's just a weird pose, kind of, where you're just. It's just, yeah. Yeah, you just feel
I
weird. You just.
actually do it. I keep this hand down and go like this.
Oh, see,
So
that's
it's a
better.
little
Yeah.
more
Yeah,
cutesy.
yeah, that's a lot better. Yeah, because, like, especially like when they used to have bodybuilding in it too, you'd see them and they just be like that, and it's like that doesn't look like, it's like, what is, yeah. So
What
yeah,
is that?
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, and just so many people don't realize too. I always like to say, sometimes for these posing sessions, I mean, they take more out of you than some of the workouts that you do, and people just don't realize that either. So just, I mean, again, just all of the hard work that goes into it, I mean, is just mind blowing for so many people. But when you're going on stage, I always like to say it's kind of unfair because for the bands that I have on, they can go on stage and perform for, like 2, 3 hours max. But you guys are on there for usually like a minute or sometimes even less than a minute. Is that kind of difficult to psych yourself up when you're getting ready for these shows just to realize that, like, hey, I'm only going to be on there for a minute and I'm doing all this hard work, all this sacrifice just for a minute?
Um, no, it has never bothered me. Um, I think if I was on there more than a minute, I would probably do horrible.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, I think that even though it's a minute, there's so many pictures and videos. It's like it's memorable.
Does it feel much longer than a minute when you're out there?
It feels like hours.
Yeah. See, well, that's the difference too. I mean, if it feels like that, then I mean, then yeah, that's the right amount of time. But yeah, that's just one of those things where I was like, God, some of these bands that are on here just forever, and I was like, then you guys go out there and I mean, these bands, yeah, they practice, every once in a while, but they're not, going to the gym religiously and just, going through all of that. I mean, there's no nutrition plan for bands to like go out and sing their songs. So yeah, I mean, that's why I always say it's like that is just so much more just passion that's into it. But now we go to another fun question. What is your go-to post-show meal?
Oh, I love macaroni and cheese. Macaroni and french fries and cheesecake.
That sounds absolutely delicious, and that's making my mouth water right now. I always said if I ever competed, I would just go to a Five Guys with $1,000 and just say, "Hey, I'm renting you out for the night. I'm either gonna die,
Yes.
throw up, or puke. Either way, I'm getting my money's worth, and just feed me." But one of the most important questions that I love to ask, probably the most important question that I ask is, because it's another myth that I think, with Instagram and with other things, I mean, it needs to be talked about a little bit more because so many people don't realize that when you're in that stage look, that is not a sustainable look. Like you said, you were at like 185 and then you lost like 30 pounds. People don't realize that you're not able to keep that weight because
No.
let's be honest, it's a little unhealthy when you're up there at that stage
Yes.
lean because you've dieted down, you've leaned down to an extreme, and it is not sustainable. And I think so many people look at these competitors and they're shocked to learn that because they're like, oh, with all that hard work, I thought that they'd be able to, like keep it off. But it is just such a huge shock for so many people. Was that a struggle for you when you first realized, hey, all this hard work that I put into it, I am going to eventually have to put on weight?
It was very hard. Off season, it's always hard to get started, eating more, watching yourself go from this super lean, contest ready person to having to wear a size large shirt or a size 8 pants when you've been like a 2 or a 3. It is a mental struggle. It always will be. It'll never change. But I do know that's what my body needs. And I know it's healthier. Because if I tried to look like this all the time, I could not function eventually.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that too. I mean, and that leads me into, I mean, I always love to say, it's just like starting a business where you got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle or anything else. I mean, it just goes with the territory. But do you have any funny prep brain stories? Because for anyone out there, they don't realize prep brain is because you've dieted yourself down to such an extreme where sometimes, your brain can play some tricks on you. I mean, we've had people like forget car keys or they just do funny stuff. Has anything like that happened to you when you've been in prep?
Oh, goodness. I'm sure it has. I mean, I've put clothes on backwards or I put shoes on before socks
Oh yeah.
multiple times. I have worn like mismatched socks, like high socks, not even realizing it. I've cooked food that needed water in it, but didn't have water in it. I've left my oven on. I mean, there's a million things.
And that just, yeah, I just love hearing those stories. I mean, like we had people that they just forget stuff, and it just goes to show again, like how you cannot be in that stage of leanness for such a long amount of time. And
No.
also, I mean, the most amazing fact of all time. I mean, like you said, you're a mom of five. How are you able to find time to still go to the gym and maintain this lifestyle while also having five kids? Because I always like to say, being a mom, excuse me, being a mom, that is like having a full-time job, basically. So how are you able to balance these things and still have the right amount of time to work on yourself?
So during prep, I actually have a spin bike in my living room. I get up at 3:30 in the morning, do my cardio. I go to work. I have clients really early in the morning. Come back home, get my kids ready, get them to school, go to the gym immediately. I'm in and out of the gym by lunchtime. Then in the evening, I do cardio with my kids in the room. So it's one of those things like people, like I said, they always have an excuse, but really it's only an excuse because they are allowing that excuse. There are ways to do things with kids.
Well, and plus, I mean, with your kids, I mean, you basically have 5 different weights at different sizes or whatever that you can use too. I mean, if you ever run out of dumbbells, basically. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and that's so amazing because, like I was telling you before, I work nights, so I get home, around like 1 o'clock, and I'm usually going to bed, around like 3:30. So you're getting up by the time I'm going to sleep.
I go to bed at 8 p.m.
Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say like if she's going to bed like later, I was like, okay, that's crazy. But yeah,
No.
you have to go to bed at a decent hour, which I mean, yeah, and I always find that funny whenever I have these health and fitness guests on because we're usually getting up at the exact opposite times or going to bed. So that's always a fun thing. But also, how important is it for you too to just be that role model for your kids, just to realize that they can see, like you can be healthy and you can be fit. Just because I always say with the obesity crisis that is happening, I mean, there's so many things that people are doing wrong, but just to have that be that positive example for your kids, how important is that for you to just set that positive example?
It's actually the most important thing to me, to see my kids grow up and not have, like, health issues, or even myself have issues that they will have to deal with later. It is important to me. It's important that they play sports. They actually go to the gym. They do our classes. They like to lunge around the gym and can tell my clients what to do. So having them involved is super important to me, and it teaches them so much, not just about health, but about being in charge or about success or never giving up.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, have had so many health and fitness specialists come on who aren't just, bodybuilders, but they also, like write books about it. And one of the biggest things that they say to help with this crisis that we have going on is that, it all lies in the parents. I mean, if you have a positive example of parents, studies have shown that they are vastly more effective at making their kids adapt a healthy lifestyle later on in life or choose to adapt one, just because if you set that model and that mindset, I mean, it can do wonders for them. So that, I mean, that is so great that you're doing that. But what is your kids' opinion about having a mom that's a bodybuilder? What do they think about it?
They brag.
Yeah.
Um, there's when I walk into the school, everyone stares, and you would think they'd be weirded out,
Yeah.
but they're not. They actually love it. I'll walk by kids getting off the bus, and the other day, actually, someone was like, "Whoa, she has bodybuilding legs," and I was like, "What?" This is a like maybe an 8-year-old saying this. Um, but it is. I actually found a video of my 7-year-old son the other day sitting in the gym I wasn't aware of. He was recording on the phone. It was a 3-minute video of him flexing, posing, and lifting weights.
Did he get the poses done good?
He did. He's learning how to vacuum.
Oh, yep.
He's got classic down.
Oh, that is hilarious. And yeah, like I said, it just adds so much more to really just helping out, especially, I mean, let's be honest, they're gonna be, having, because I've had, I even had a friend who had parents that, I mean, they didn't bodybuild, but I mean, they could if they wanted to. We're just, and that kid now is just in such great shape. He's in better shape than a lot of people that I know. So that is just another thing that really helps out. But being that you're in North Carolina too, I always like to ask because it's, it's known, like like I told you before, my grandpa always calls it God's country, where I mean, it's just such a beautiful place to be, especially in the fall. Being in a place that can be so great and so scenic, do you incorporate a lot of your workouts in the outdoors?
I'm not gonna lie, I actually do not. With the weather the way it is, it's either really cold or really hot or muddy
When
right
she
now.
says
But
really cold, she means North Dakota. I mean, she means North Carolina really cold. She doesn't know what really cold is. Let's be
I
honest.
don't. To me, it's really
Yeah, yeah.
cold. Um, but we do get outside a lot. The kids, they play baseball, basketball, they're all into sports. So while I don't work out outside, we do. We spend a lot of time outside.
So now that we were talking about the cold, I haven't told this story in a long time, so I'm gonna retell it just because just to give her a little insight of how cold it can get up here. So we were talking before about the polar vortex and how it got to be like -60 degrees wind chill up here. I think it was like -30, like regular temperature. So my job, I work at UPS and I'm a supervisor. So part of that is at the end of each night, we have to go outside and check all of the trailers in the parking lot to make sure that, like the package, the trucks that have packages in them really showed up, or the ones that didn't, like we know of like what the volume is. So during that polar vortex, I still had to go outside, and these checks take about 45 minutes. So I wrapped myself. I had 5 layers of coats, 5 layers of head stuff. I couldn't breathe because I was just so covered up. I had 5 layers of basically, gloves and mittens, 5 layers of socks. I had my shoes on. I had 5 layers of pants. I went out there and it's that type of cold where you can't even talk, because if you open your mouth to talk, your breath just gets like it hurts. It hurts your mouth to even like talk. So it was the only thing that wasn't covered was basically the whites of my eyes and part of my eyelashes.
Oh
So when we were out there, I closed my eyes for like 5 seconds and they froze together. So I had to like heat up my breath, my hand, and then like put it up there, and then take it out. So yeah, I was the only one that was like actually like I wasn't that cold. Like I actually felt fine, but it was like that night when I got home, like that's the only night that I fell asleep without my fan on because I was just dead, and I was like, I'm not making my room any colder than it needs to be. But yeah, that is absolutely, yeah, that's a story that I'm gonna definitely tell my kids because yeah, that is just showing how cruel the winter can be up here. But yeah, so I don't want to depress anyone anymore, so we'll be moving on. But two of my favorite questions that I love to ask my health and fitness guests that I have on, I mean, for me there were so many positive things that happened, with going to the gym and working out, but one of the negative things is you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next few months before I move out. It's in 2 months, people. So every time they come home with groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and lift in all the groceries. Has that been a similar experience with you where people just take one look at you and they just assume that you can do favors for them?
yes, it has. It's the move, like you said, the moving. Um, and mostly, yeah, just mostly moving furniture. When people want to move, they all of a sudden need you.
Yep, it's one of those things where I just realized, hey, it goes with the territory. But yeah, like every other weekend last summer, it'd be, hey, Ryan, you want to come over and help me move my furniture? And I told him, I said, well, first of all, no, I don't want to, but I'll do it. But yeah, so, and just also, you get like asked to like arm wrestle a lot too. I remember when I used to like
Oh,
go,
yes.
when I like used to go to bars and I'd be like a little bit more sleeveless, girls would just come up and start feeling my arm without even like asking. They'd be like, oh my God, like Becky, her friend or whatever, come check this guy out. And let's be honest, I was vain back then, so I'd pump it up a little bit for him. But it's just, for anyone that always asked to arm wrestle, I always told them, I'd be like, let's just go to a gym and have like a military press off if you really want to test like strength or something like that, which I never got. But yeah, you basically become like a human art exhibit. Let's
Yes.
be honest, for other people, and it's something that can take a lot of time to really get used to. And for me, it's always a double-edged sword too, being 6'3", where I could have zero muscle at all and people be like, oh yeah, tall guy can do that stuff. So it's been doubly hard for me, but I have managed. But now my favorite question to ask, and my audience favorite, just from the feedback that I get from this, is again, everyone, it's a multi-million-dollar idea. But when it comes to clothes for fit women, I mean, I always say fit guys have their own problems. See, we get that reaction all the time. Fit women, I mean, let's be honest, if you have big, broad shoulders, dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time. If you have a big lower body and a small waist, jeans are not made for that. What are some ways that you have found that you're able to compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited?
I honestly wear stretchy everything.
Yep.
Crop tops, loose fitting tops. I cut shirts to make them cute. I'm not gonna lie, I've had to cut my sports bras under my armpits just to get them to work because my back is so big, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've still never found the perfect solution. I just wear yoga pants and stretchy shorts.
Well, you got to go sleeveless too if you have arms like that. Because let's be honest, if I was even during that polar vortex, I mean, I would be going sleeveless basically, and I'd be out, like pushing, like shoveling stuff, and people like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Okay, I got to show this off." Like if it looks like, so yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, it's just one of those things. So yeah, and it's just, I mean, I always say if anyone out there finds clothing options that really work or makes like dresses for that, definitely let me know because that is a multi-million-dollar idea. That I mean, so many people, like I just say, I've had so many guests on that would just love to have those as an option. But also being a personal trainer, I love to ask because we see all these weight loss stories and transformation photos on Instagram, and it's always about, like, oh, I feel so good. It's all about the client. We don't really get to experience what that's like for the personal trainer. What is that feeling like for you, knowing that you have helped someone better their life and you have just, really just made such a huge impact for them? Does that really make everything that you go through when it comes to training them to all the other things, does that really make it worthwhile?
It actually does. It's one of my favorite things to see. I do progress pictures weekly, and just to compare pictures, it's a feeling that I don't know how to explain it. Um, you feel like you're genuinely helping someone, and I know I am. Their confidence, their physical, how they feel, mentally, physically, everything. It's amazing. It really is.
And I mean, yeah, it's just just to help out others too. I mean, even just doing the little things, I mean, can just make you feel so much better. So I can't imagine what it's like really making that huge change. But I also love to make the joke. I mean, when you're a personal trainer, you're basically a therapist as well. So I mean, you might as well, you might as well have a degree hanging up saying, therapist on your wall too, because just some of the stories that we hear, I mean, you get very close to people, let's be honest, and you really like learn, and you're really, just really having to spread that positivity. But I also love to ask, being on prep too, when you're also being a personal trainer. I mean, when you're on prep, because you're tired, because you're so drained, I mean, you can have a little bit shorter of a fuse. I mean, you can, be a little bit more aggravated. What are some ways that you find that you're still able to stay positive? Because you got to be positive for your clients. What are some ways that you're really able to dig down deep and just realize, like, hey, I may be feeling like absolute crap like now, but I still need to, have that image for my clients?
I think it's the fact they also look up to me, and I am the reason they make it every day at 5:30 in the morning or whenever. Um, and it's literally an hour of my day. If I can't be positive for an hour, then I shouldn't be prepping. So I think that's what it is. It is, yes, my fuse is shorter. I'm not gonna lie. When they start to whine to me, I'm like, shut up, shut up. You don't know anything right now. Um, but they know I have good intentions.
Oh, and that's, as long as you have good intentions, yeah, yeah, and absolutely. I mean, yeah, just realizing. I mean, if knowing this now, if I ever got a personal trainer and I knew that they were prepping, I'd be like, okay, yeah, take all of your anger out on me. You can yell at me, you can do whatever. I was like, just lay it on me. I'm fine. I can deal with that. So yeah, that's another thing that people just don't realize that these people just go through too, that is just so extraordinary. But now we go to our audience favorite and my personal favorite part of the podcast, the questionnaire, where we're going to ask our guest here about a dozen or so health and fitness related questions that we ask all of our guests, sort of like a questionnaire where we'll take her answers and use them to sort of compare to see how her answers differ from other guests that we've had on. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
I honestly don't have a go-to song. I do listen to Eric Thomas a lot.
All right, yeah.
Motivational speeches while I work out.
Oh, motivational speeches. Okay, so that's our first time that we've had that on. So that's awesome because yeah, just having that wide variety. So yeah, Eric Thomas, everyone, go and look that up if you want to, get some motivation in you. I mean, I always say I got to have my cheesy 80s music, just my just the cheesiest crap that there is out there. I mean, I'll have, like my White Snake or my, just those cheesy hair metal bands just cuz it's so motivating to me, just cuz it's so cheesy, but so yeah, I always got to have those type of bands, but I have a problem. So I have a gym at home, which is nice. I mean, when I say gym, it's just, but like your basic amount of weights and just, it's basically enough to keep a pump. So 50% of the time I work out from there and then the other 50% I go to a normal gym. But when I'm at a normal gym, I'm one of those guys where I got to wait for the beat to drop. So like if I'm doing like lat pull downs, I might be like this for, like a minute or so. And I've had people come up to me and be like, hey, are you all right? Did you like pull out your back or something like that? And I say, oh, no, I'm fine. Just waiting for the beat to drop. So I am known throughout my gym as the guy that waits for the beat to drop. But I take that with pride. So yeah, that's
Yes.
that is my story. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, it would be Dwayne Johnson.
Our most popular answer, I'd say about 90% of them have been that. So it's going to get to a point where eventually I'm just going to say, other than Dwayne The Rock Johnson, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be? But, I see Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Yeah, that would be, my go-to as well. I mean, for me, it would also probably be Arnold, just because, it's Arnold, but, yeah, so that's another one that we hear a lot. But now, out of all the celebrities, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, um, you know what? I do not know. I have never thought about that. Let me think. Maybe like Ariana Grande.
You would break her in half.
Exactly. That's the point.
Yeah. Yeah, get Ariana Grande bulked up. Yeah, that would be hilarious.
It would be a fun project.
Oh yeah, yeah. You could use her as like, yeah, you could just carry her around basically. That's I mean that's like that would be like the entire. You could use her basically as your weight. Then that would be your workout then that you would do. But
Yes.
yeah, I always hate these celebrities that like post these stuff on Instagram where they're like curling like a 2 pound weight and they're like, oh my god, getting ready for my movie role. And yeah, and then like 3 weeks later they're like super lean down. It's like, let's be honest, you had your own personal trainer, you had your own cook, you had everything like that, and they did everything for you. You put in none of the work
Yes.
really. And so yeah, I always hate that. So yeah, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. But now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Oh, I always have sugar-free barbecue sauce.
Okay, thank God. Well, I was gonna say being from the South, I was gonna say barbecue sauce probably is gonna be one of those things up there. But I always say the most shocking answer for me has been mustard. I would have never guessed that in a million years. So many of our guests have had mustard as their answer, and it's because it's zero in calories, zero in fat, so they just douse their whatever they douse their chicken and eggs basically in mustard. And I always say to that, if you have to do that, you might want to reevaluate your life. But that's just. I mean, I'm a team ketchup guy full and through, but yeah, barbecue sauce. Yeah, that's definitely awesome. What is your favorite thing to put barbecue sauce on?
Um, I put it on my eggs, I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, that's better than mustard though, let's be honest. Because mustard just
It is,
mustard just
it is.
yeah, but yeah, barbecue sauce on eggs, that must be so you just put on or do you like to mix it together when you're making them? How do you do it?
I just put it on after.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say because if you mix it together when you're making them, that would be interesting to like have it like
I
in
do
soak inside the thing.
tapatio in my eggs while I cook them.
Okay, yeah. So she definitely really mixes it up, which I like because instead of just the bland, like, oh yeah, just plain chicken and plain eggs, but
Oh, no way.
yeah, you gotta definitely mix things up. But now, out of all your followers that you have on Instagram, what is one thing that you think they would be shocked to find out about you if they met you in person?
Um, well, most of them don't realize I have 5 kids until I randomly make a post, so that would be something.
And you embarrass everyone too.
Yes.
Yes.
Um, I'm actually and then the fact that I was 115 pounds literally 3 years ago. So I don't know. I I don't know what
I'd say yeah, I'd say definitely the 5 kids, just because yeah, when some of our guests that we've had on too have had a lot of kids, where you just take one look and you're like, there's no way, and then they prove it, and then you're like, okay, yeah, I'm done. Like I'm never gonna work out ever again. There's no way I can achieve that. Where it's just like, yep, I give up. But yeah, and that's just so funny to just see
Yes.
what you can achieve and just serve as a motivation too for so many moms out there too, just to see like, hey, you can look like that after you've had kids, because a lot of moms that we've had on too, they at first gave up after they have kids because they're like, oh, now I'm not really going to be expected to look good now, it's going to be a lot harder. Where just realize that it is possible, and we cannot thank you enough, I mean, for being that positive
Of
image
course.
for so many people. But now, if someone were to walk up to you and say, we made a decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, and every single person would go along with it, what would be one thing that you would like to see changed about the sport?
I know some people like to act like it doesn't exist, but I think politics
Hmm.
would be the one thing. I think that there are many people that don't get seen on a stage, and it's just politics, and it sucks. I'm not talking about me per se, I'm just talking about in general. We all work very hard to get on stage, and I think that judging everything should be done the same no matter what.
Absolutely. I mean, I just posted on Monday, Katie Lee was on the podcast, if you know who that is. And she was
Yeah,
talking about, one of the things that I agree with the most, where the judges are always constantly changing things up, where it's like, oh, we want a
yeah,
leaner look this year. We want a more muscular look this year, where it's like, just make up your mind, just like have a like it could just make like one of those, like one of those like clothing models that you see at stores, like those styrofoam models or whatever. Just make one of those and just be like, here, this is the proportions that we want to see.
needs to be the
Yeah,
same.
it needs to be the same. Yeah, because let's be honest, if you got really, really lean for a show and then the next show they're like, "Oh, we want a little bit more muscular look," good luck doing that in like the short amount of time that you might have. I mean, it's just so unfair. So I really think that yeah, every like especially with NPC, they would just adapt one main look that they just say, you know what, here's what we want you to look like, and the person who gets the closest to this or something. I mean, because I really think that would help a lot. Yeah.
I do agree 100%.
Yep. And now we go to the fun part of the questionnaire. So, what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
Oh, I'm watching oh goodness, I'm watching it right now. A series of unfortunate events.
Oh, yep, yep. The one with Neil Patrick Harris as the guy.
Yes, and
Yep,
he's
yep.
like all kooky
Hmm.
looking. Yes,
Yeah, I remember I read those books when I was a kid, and then I saw the movie with Jim Carrey when it came out. I was a fan of those, but I haven't looked into it. But yeah, that's actually one on Netflix that I've been trying to get into
yes.
when I have the time. But now everyone has one. What is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
I love the Avengers.
Avengers. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest. Like I was really into the superhero thing until they started making them like every 3 months. And then it's kind of like with Star Wars. Like I was one of the biggest Star Wars guys, but when
Yeah,
you're making them like every year, it's like, come on, people. Like I'll watch the next one, like because it's the ninth and final one of that trilogy. Like I'll go and see it in theaters. But it's like after that, it's like I'm draining myself. But like with the Avengers too, I liked the first one. Like it was great. But once they start making them,
and keep
month that yeah,
going.
keep going and like keep introducing new things, and it's like give us all a break a little bit. And it's the same formula for so many of these movies where you're just like, okay, but like yeah, like the original the Spider-Man with like Tobey Maguire, those type of movies. Like when I was really young, I loved those growing up. But yeah, so those are definitely good for being up in my guilty pleasure checklist. But for me, again, all of my guy friends, close your ears. I'll never admit this in person. Princess Bride is my guilty pleasure movie. Yep, laugh it away. Yeah, no, yeah.
We all have secrets.
Oh,
Yours just came.
absolutely. Like that movie was on yesterday and I watched it when I should have been editing a podcast. So I was a little bit late in my editing just because, Princess Bride's on, and I got home from work, so I had to watch it. So again, all my guy friends, I will never admit that in person. So you're gonna have to listen to this podcast. If you say I heard you say it on the podcast, I will deny until you pull up a video and hear me say it. So yeah, that is my guilty pleasure movie. But now our final two questions of the questionnaire. If you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Oh goodness, to not party. I just wish, honestly, I hate to say I have regrets, but I think that would have changed a lot of things, and I would have been in shape a lot sooner.
Or I'll help her out a little bit. Party responsibly.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that is what
Because
it
if you
is.
don't party, then let's be honest. I mean, it's like what's the point then? When you're young, then.
We all do. We do. We need to have
Yeah.
experience.
Believe me, I went to one of the biggest drinking colleges in the Midwest. So yeah, I get that 100% where yeah, it got to a point where but I worked out like religiously, so I was able to keep it down. But like yeah, still it got to a point where I realized I was like, God, if I stopped drinking, imagine how much better I would look than I
I
even look
know.
right now. So yeah, that's what really changed for me too. But my advice too would be similar along those lines where it's just like, yeah, make some great memories, but just make sure that, you're just not overdoing things where that's all you really are associated with, where just make sure that you spread out. So yeah, that would be my best piece of advice too. But now, if we were to talk to a year from now, where would you like to be at in, your bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at in personal training? And where would you like to be at just in your overall life? If we were to talk to a year from today.
Um, I want to say I competed at the Olympia this year. Um, of course, I want to win next week. um, and business wise, I would love to honestly solely do business online, pick up 10 more clients online, and also a meal prep business eventually.
That is awesome, and I mean honestly, we wish you nothing but the best. And if you do come up with those things, definitely let me know, and I'll give it a shout out on here. I mean, I love helping
Yeah.
out all the guests that I have. So what's this? What's the show that you're getting ready for, and that you're a week away from?
It's funny you mentioned Katie Lee. We're both doing St. Louis Pro.
We have a little. We're gonna have a cat. No, I'm just kidding. I was gonna say we're gonna have a cat
No.
fight on here, but no, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, and honestly, we wish you nothing but the best in that. Can you give us a little preview? Can you give us a front double bicep?
Yes, I can. I can stand.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
So that way you can see my legs.
Good God, everyone, that's just ridiculous. Yep, yeah, she's definitely got a shot to win. Yeah, everyone. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's awesome. And honestly, we wish you nothing but the best of luck in that. But now, our final questions that we like to ask before we wrap things up. So, what is one? I mean, if you were get to walk down the street and someone were to walk up to you and say like, "Wow, you look amazing. How can I, look like that? Or how can I, just start to get in shape?" What would be the best piece of advice you would give them?
So there's a long answer and a short answer. I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, I want to look like her. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to diet. I'm going to do this and this and this." And I think honestly, the best thing I could say is to take it one step at a time. Start changing your diet little by little. Start adding cardio, then add weights. And just because if you jump in and do everything at once, you're going to get in over your head and you're most likely going to quit. And it takes time.
That is definitely. I mean, I've heard that answer so many times where it's just so many people jump into it and they try to do everything at once. They don't realize that you have to take that first little step. You can't just. I mean, let's be honest. If you're gonna learn to swim, you don't go into the middle of the ocean and then just throw yourself in there and say,
No,
you know what, we're gonna learn that way. So yeah, just take it simple. But especially for moms out there, like we were talking about before, there's so many moms that just are really don't think that they can get back into that shape, what advice do you have for moms out there to still be able to, find that time to work on themselves while also dealing with their kids?
I think just remember that our kids look up to us and we need to think highly of ourselves and we need to be the best versions of ourselves for them. And I think that people are always like, well, my kids and this and that, and I don't have time because of doctor's appointments or whatever. Um, but the thing is, you're only going to be your best version, your best parenting, the best mom you can be if you take care of yourself and you love yourself. I can't say it enough. You have got to love yourself, parent or not a parent.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And now for lastly, is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to?
Of course, my husband, because honestly, I I mean, he does help me a lot with right now, especially when I'm tired or I don't want to go to the grocery store. So yes, my husband, I mean, all my family, all my friends really, because they're all supportive and they all understand how much this means to me and they're all lending helping hands. So I don't have exactly one person. I'm thankful for everyone in my life right now.
And that's just so important because to have that support, because I started my journey. I mean, like I've told many times, I never bodybuilded, but or I never competed, I should say. But just getting in better shape, having that person there that you can talk to, or just having that outlet where, because I did it myself, to be completely honest, for like the first 6 months, and it was really hard because I mean you're doing everything by yourself, you're learning everything, but to have
Yeah.
that one person to be there for you, or just, yeah, just even one person, but to even have more than that is just so helpful for people. So I cannot stress that enough. But again, we cannot thank Alyssa enough for being on the show. I mean, it was so great having you on, and we wish you nothing but the best in your competition. I think that you're going to do personally great. And if you, like I said, if any of those things pop up for you, like your meal plan or anything, well, and I'll leave a link down for your website and your Instagram page so everyone can go and give you a follow. So yeah, and again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. It was so great
Thank you
talking to you.
so much for having me.
Absolutely. So again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.